Hi everyone, you're watching Good for the Game TV. It's Thursday night, South African time, 9 o'clock. It's about 7 o'clock in New Zealand if you're joining us, because one of our guests is joining us from New Zealand this week. And of course, this is Rugby Chat That Matters. We're not just here to talk about rugby. We're here to talk about making some money and getting involved in sports betting. So, of course, the focus of tonight's show is going to be our two semi-finals. Jaguares up against the Brumbies in Buenos Aires, and then the Crusaders against the Hurricanes in Christchurch. What a mouth-watering clash that is. Let's get straight into things. Before you do anything else, if you are new to the channel, pop down below the video and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell as well, and you'll be notified of all of our videos. We do plenty of rugby previews. We also do the odd cricket, golf, and we do a rugby magazine show, Use It or Lose It, on a Monday night, where we're going to be focusing in particular on the build-up to Rugby World Cup in Japan. Without further ado, now let's introduce the guests, and I'm going to start off in Invercargill. He went to bed early on Thursday night just so that he could get up for the show. Steve, good to have you on. Or by the shake of that head, are you just arriving from a night out?
It's not quite that bad, but there's never an early night over here, I can tell you. There's always some bad reason to stay up late, normally editing a video. So, no, sadly, after a pool, I went to bed about 1 o'clock, and now I've got up at 6:30. So, not good on my part, but thankfully I can go back to bed soon.
Excellent. Well, look forward to finding out a little bit more about betting in New Zealand as well. And then down there in George, it's a Couch Critic. I finished reading his preview a while ago. It was made for entertaining reading. I'm guessing he wrote it in a pub somewhere. Couch, good to have you back on the show.
How's it, Brent? Hi, Steve. Yes, it was good fun. I was actually, I think I'm on the wrong show. I thought we were going to talk about the Proteas playing against Sri Lanka. You know, it's a big game tomorrow.
It's yeah, it certainly is a big game for Sri Lanka, because they're still in with a chance in this tournament, I can tell you. Just hi there to the guys in the live chat. Peter Paul's joined us. Stephen Mark. Stephen, well done. I didn't know where you are on Twitter, but you did win the GG Gaming 500 Rand voucher last week. So make contact with me or them to claim that voucher as well. So well done on that. Gents, we've got a big weekend of rugby coming up. And Steve, I just want to start with you, first of all, before we get into the Jags-Brumbies game. New Zealand. Everyone I speak to in New Zealand always talks about TAB New Zealand. I mean, is that pretty much where you bet if you live in New Zealand, or are there other bookmakers as well?
No, that's pretty much it. You can, of course, go international, which is probably similar to what you guys can do there as well. But if you want to stay New Zealand betting-wise here, the TAB, that's it. That's it. We've got TAB shops everywhere. You can get TAB outlets and pubs and things like that. They're everywhere. But, I mean, that is it. As far as New Zealand's concerned, there's no competition, really. And so, I mean, they do a pretty good job of covering everything. But when it comes to odds, you can't really shop around too much and try and pick out those good ones where other companies may lack a bit. So you've got to go international if you want to go outside the TAB. And
anything legally stopping you going international? Or is that a problem or not really?
No, there's nothing stopping you going international. Just, I guess it's easier to stay with the local one, isn't it? Because it kind of makes sense. And it is kind of tailored to New Zealand things. So quite often there's they'll have specials that relate to form or to recent going on to the media. So it's a pretty how to describe it is quite difficult, but it's tailored especially to New Zealand. It's international ones are pretty professional, I guess you could say. The TAB probably doesn't take itself as seriously as other betting agencies and does like to throw out the odd candy to some of its bettors out there. So yeah, you got to be careful. A few weeks ago they had a special deal on for the Crusaders where they were paying a really, really good odd for George Bridge or Sevu Reece to score a try, and the way the Crusaders were going, I thought, this is a sure thing for me, surely. So I jumped on that with quite a bit of money as well, and they played the Blues. And if you remember that game, they scored one try and kicked a whole lot of penalties, which is very un-Crusaders-like, and it's almost as if they knew that was going to happen. So yeah, they do like to give you those little different sort of bets out there as well, and if you keep your eyes peeled, you can get some good deals.
Excellent. And tell me, in New Zealand, sports betting, is it big though? I mean, do a lot of your mates play betting as well, or do they tend to just watch the rugby for enjoyment?
Yeah, it's not huge. You either do it or you don't. So it's, a lot of people don't really do it. That I'd probably know around the place. Socially, it's probably a big thing, especially with having the outlets and the pubs and things like that. Horse racing, it's pretty massive. People really jump onto that. But sports-wise, there's these big things. They do a lot of money in some certain things. You get a lot of people will put huge sums on certain results, but it's not a massive thing that everyone gets into now. It's pretty tame, I guess, compared to what you'd see in other markets and other countries. It's probably pretty small.
Excellent. Well, let's get going with Couch Critic on the first game. It's going to be 1:10 South African time, Couch. My first question to you is, will you be getting up for this one, or will you be getting home in time for this one? And my second question is, where's the money?
Listen, Brent, just a quick question to you on that one. You asked Steve this, but would you say in South Africa sports betting is big? If someone had to ask you that question from New Zealand's point of view, is sports betting big for you in South Africa?
Yeah, I would say sports betting is big in South Africa. It's not as big as it is, for example, in the UK yet. But if you look at the growth, bear in mind, sports betting was illegal in South Africa up until 1994. So it got a bit of a late start. You could only bet on horse racing. You had to drive all ends of the earth if you wanted to get a sports bet on. So it's grown a lot. And I think, Couch, you just have to look at the proliferation of online sports books in our country at the moment. I mean, we've got so many. I would say that we've probably, at a guess, I'd say we've got 40 to 50 online registered sports books, of which I'd probably list 5 to 8 of those as the big boys who are going to be there in 5 to 6 years' time. But yeah, I would say sports betting growing. I mean, we only have to look at things like sponsorship of teams, the World Sports Betting, Cape Cobras, the Hollywood Bets, Dolphins. I mean, they're starting to get involved, as you do see in the UK with the likes of Betway and West Ham and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think it's growing, and that's why, if from what Steve's telling me, it's bigger here than it is there. But what he also, it could be the way the whole market's set up, and perhaps quite a lot of potential there, because I know in Australia it's pretty big as well. So does that answer your question, Couch?
No, definitely. The only thing is, I wish I'd also get a few of the bookies throwing me some candy, because that hasn't happened in quite a while. Eh?
No, that's it. You've got to, as Steve says, you do get these specials from the bookmakers, but you got to watch out for them. They normally, I know, like Gary's price boost on GG Gaming. There's normally a bit of shrewdness behind that price boost. He's trying to suck a few little people in there as well. Okay, guys, well, let's get into the rugby now.
Yes. Okay, I'll go on to that one. I'll probably stay awake, Brent. Actually, the plan was last weekend to do it, but as you said, I went out in Stellies, and by 12 o'clock, I'd completely forgotten about the game, so I had to watch the rerun the next morning. So that didn't quite work out for me. So this case, if I do stay up, I'll probably just stay home, maybe invite some mates here and try and do it that way. So I'm definitely not gonna venture out, or it might go south. In terms of this one, I was actually quite surprised of how well the Chiefs gave it to the Jags last week. I expected, I went for the halftime, full time, so I didn't pull that one off, and I was very impressed with Jaguares this whole season. And as you guys know, they've been very kind to me, but I must say I'm probably, surprisingly to you guys, I'm jumping ship here. I think I know that the Sharks are rubbish and they're playing like a high school team and anyone can pull moves against them, but geez, the Brumbies were clinical in that match. I mean, in the first 10 minutes, they pulled off two great moves to score. They had another one in there a little bit later, and I just think they absolutely humming at this stage. And to me, I think maybe the Jaguares aren't used to being in the playoff setup. I'm thinking maybe they'll just need a speed wobble, and the occasion's going to get to them. I know they'll be psyched after the run out and have a good solid 20 minutes. But I think if the Brumbies, it's almost like that new ball in cricket. If they can see it off, then they could be in for the fight there. And as we've said, the Jaguares don't really have the strongest pack of forwards, and the Brumbies going to try and target them there. So for me, the value in this one is to take the Brumbies for the win.
Brumbies for the win is your value there. What sort of price are you getting there, Couch?
I think the best I've seen is about 19 to 10. I've got like 18, 1.88 at Bet Olymp is the price that I got. Maybe 19 to 10. I know WSP, I think, was on about 17 to 10. So it's going to be around there.
Excellent. Well, we'll go and have a look at those prices now. Steve, let's go to you. I popped onto the TAB New Zealand earlier. I think the handicap on this game is about 5.5 points with the Jags favourite.
Yep, yeah, you'll be spot on here. 5.5. It started off a few days ago at 4.5. So there's probably a bit going on the upset, some may call it, to drive that up a little bit. But it's close, isn't it? It's really, really close. And it's not really, for my liking, anything really too special about this one to really jump on as a good bet. I don't think for money wise that you think is going to really happen. But I agree with what's being said there. The Jaguares really weren't that impressive. They weren't that special in their quarterfinal matchup that we'd probably seen from them in the end of the pool play. So you got to have that little bit of doubt, and I guess that's why the Brumbies are certainly in this matchup. And I mean, that probably reflects a bit in the odds that we get from TAB here as well, because the Brumbies aren't huge outside unfavourites to get this one done. So there's certainly a little bit there if you want to go the tasty way of an upset, but I'm pretty much sticking true because I think it's probably head more than heart for me on this one. They're who I want to see in the final, and I would love to see the Jaguares there in the final over the Brumbies. So, I'm not too fond of the Brumbies picking this one from behind. There's not a huge amount to really sway my opinion the other way, to be fair.
What do you think of my bet? I wrote the preview for Good for the Game on this one, and like you, Steve, this is not my game where my big bet of the weekend is coming in. I'm not particularly strong on it. I haven't even decided yet if I am going to be awake at 1:10 in the morning to watch it. But I've gone for a bet here that says either team win by 7 or less. I took that at one of our bookmakers, Sunbet, at 13-10, 1.3 to 1. So basically what I'm saying there is either team must win, but not by more than 7 points. And the draw is also a winner for that bet as well. So I'm essentially looking for a result like the 21-16 from last week where the team wins by 5 points. You reckon that'll be a good runner?
Yeah, something like that would really be good, yeah. Because there's not going to be a huge margin, I don't think, in this one. I've looked at similar as well. Even halftime, the Jaguares don't seem to be having a huge buffer. They're only 2.5 favourites at the halftime to win it as well. So, and that's only paying, well, New Zealand here, we pay by our odds are in decimal figures. So that's $1.92. So they're $1.90 favourites and $1.92 to be 2.5 up at halftime. So that's not great. I guess you could definitely get better. I've kind of looked elsewhere for something a bit special, but if there was something like your option there, that would be definitely one a bit more worth looking at, I think, because I do think it's going to be pretty on that margin. The real money, I think, if you're going to look for this one, is similar to what you're saying, but it's in the margins for the win. So you can go with something like the Jaguares to win 1-5 is paying a good $6 here, which is quite a good margin. And even the Jaguares 6-10 is paying $6 as well. So that could be tasty. But if you like the fact the Brumbies might come out of the blocks a bit stronger, the halftime, full time for the Brumbies Jaguares is paying $7. So that might be something worth looking at as well.
Well, Catch, I see Dino Zambetti in the live chat says he thinks there's too much experience in the squad for them to get psyched out by the occasion. I think that's a good point. A lot of players with international experience in the team. But just following on from the chat with Steve, another market that we often look at here is the 1-12 markets, where I think you'll find the Jags are probably around 15-16-10 to win by 1-12 points. And if you fancy the Brumbies for a win, you might be tempted to have a look at that market as well, because surely you can't see the Brumbies running away with the game.
No, exactly. That's probably the more prudent game. As you said, you just whichever way you look at it, I don't see the Brumbies winning by more than that. And also, as Steve said, I like that halftime, full time. When I can't pick a winner, I like to go for one's going to lead by something between 1 and 5 at the break, and the other one's going to win by 1-5 at the end. So either it's either way. And usually the problem here is that the Jaguares tend to, for me, come out strong when they're all fired up. So it's difficult looking at the Brumbies to lead and the Jaguares to finish strong. But I mean that happened last week with the Chiefs. So perhaps that could be the play. And as you said, 7-1. I think that's the 7-1 one. That's a nice place to have a runner there. But back to international experience and things like that. Still, I mean, what kind of international experience? There's not a lot of international experience in knockout semi-finals rugby. That's a different kettle of fish. So I'm still thinking that. In this, guys, it's something different for them. I'm not saying that the Brumbies are, really used to that, but I just think there's something in it. And to me, looking at these prices, the value is there for the Brumbies. And then the special bet play that I went with is something completely off the radar. It's the first try scorer to be Maroney, is playing on the wing for the Jaguares, and then the Brumbies to win the game by 1-5, and that gets you like a 80-1 shot. So that's just my shot in the dark there for a bit of fun.
Yeah, excellent. As I thought you were drinking when you did your preview. Thanks for confirming that. Couch, I'm gonna stay with you now. And Neil's just commented his bet is under 5.5 tries in the Jags game. And this brings me to the total points lines, because as many of the guys who followed the Good for the Game website over the years will know, I'm not as much a handicap punter really as I am a total points punter. But this line has come out, I guess, exactly where you would expect it to. 43.5 points. The tries is 5.5. Any value either side? Yeah, I mean, last week there were times where the game actually, I think we reached 31, almost the final score fairly early, and you thought that it could get to the 50-point mark, but then the points dried up. 43.5, it's a little bit low for me to go unders.
Brent, even in our previous in your previous show, you had that predictor, and I think the 6 scores or results I saw there, it was or 7 or 8 was slightly split, but the points were anything from 40 to 45, if I remember correctly. So everyone's kind of got the same feeling here, and even the bookmakers have gone there. So as you say, you're almost going to go for unders as a default play, but it's just not an enticing quote at the moment. Again, if I had a strong fancy, I'd rather go for one of the teams to be under. But it's just a tough call, and perhaps the tries is the better way to go, because I mean, unless the Brumbies get behind, you don't see them going for that corner as often as perhaps they did in the season. They could go for goal. The Eliafano is pretty decent kicker, and the Jaguares is the same. It should be a lot of kicking. And actually, now that I think about it, that market might be a good one to go for. The more penalties than tries. That could be one to go for. I haven't checked the price or anything, but if you get a decent price there, then maybe that's a nice play to go for in this one. And the other one that I actually do in games like these is the time of first try. I know guys like Oracle feel it's a little bit of a coin flip, but again, you're taking out this early kick for the corner, so that does help your odds. So if you're getting that 13, 14 minute for the first try, then it's definitely I'm going overs on that.
Okay, excellent. Well, if you're watching and you think this is the game that he doesn't have much betting interest in, you can't wait to hear what he's going to say in the Crusaders game, that's for sure, because he listed about 12 bets there. Lovely, Couch. Steve, before we move off this game, let me come to you. I know that TAB New Zealand, I think, also offer total points lines. They weren't up when I checked earlier, but I have been on their site over the years. At one stage, they used to be the first out, and I used to like to go and get a feel for the lines there with TAB New Zealand. 43.5 points looks about right. And then just your opinion on another bet. Which half will be the highest scoring? It sounds a bit speculative, but quite often I find these playoff games sort of start off with a bang, and then the team that gets ahead sort of just protects their lead in the second half.
Yeah, well, the last night before I went to get a couple of hours sleep, there wasn't the total points up there, but they have since put it up overnight, thank goodness. So they've gone with 43.5 is their margin for that. So yeah, you're probably, if anything, you'd go under that as well. You just don't know what's going to happen, especially with the Brumbies, who aren't prolific try scorers by default. So you'd probably back that to go under. But I mean, like you said before, it's not paying a huge amount, so it's not that enticing to try and get involved, and it's just $1.85. So for the possibility risk that it probably sits with, it's hard to jump on that one with any real interest. What was the other thing? Halftime points you've got there. So
which half would be the
half would be more scoring?
So generally the second half's the favorite. You normally get the second half at about 5 to 6, and the first half you can normally get at about even money. And the reason I mention that, it's not a bet I'm particularly keen on, but I have found sometimes in these playoff games they start off really quickly. Both teams sort of throwing caution to the wind, looking for tries, but at some stage in the game things start tightening up, and teams start just playing for the victory. And quite often I find there might be a bit of value with the first half higher scoring here.
Yeah, they don't have an exact one just like that. They have a lot of halftime options, but it's mainly winners or tries or points for the half. But yeah, it's with it, and it's completely refreshing on me every second and adding new stuff. So it's really go time for the TAB right now. So you gotta keep your eyes peeled. But yeah, you'd expect that could be the case, but it depends on who dictates the pace of this game and who controls how it flows. If the Brumbies do get this one under their grasp, then you could find it could be a very slow game and could have a very slow first half where they will just control that pace, control that tempo, and probably look for the sticks more often than they look for the corner, as you'd expect from a playoff team. So if they do get that under their grasp, then you could probably expect there will be a pretty low first half, and then if the Jaguares can tear it back off them after that, they're going to play at that high tempo, and you're going to try and get the big guys involved, those back threes, the Buffelli, the Crusaders, those sort of guys, to hopefully get them some points on the board. So, yeah, it's a hard one to dictate how this one is going to play out, but you've got to. I quite like the try scoring options as well, and I've watched your streams in the past, and I noticed there's quite a lot of love for the hookers out there as well. So I couldn't help but throw it on here that Folau Fainga to score a try, paying $4.50 here for the Brumbies. So I think that's a fairly decent one, because the chances he's going to score, the Brumbies going to look to that special. What they're good at, isn't it? What they know how to do and what they constantly go to, and that is their go-to play to get them over the line. Also, as a little taster is Pablo Matera, $15 to score the first try. He's a real strong carrier of the ball, so I do like what Matera offers, and at that sort of price, it wouldn't be worth a little bit of a nibble just to see if he can do something special straight off the gun. So plenty of tasty ones if you're liking to risk your thoughts on the players.
Excellent. Well, you hit it spot on with old Couch. He loves his hookers, this guy. And Couch, I got to say that looks like a good price. I'm not sure that you're going to get that locally. That relates to 7-2 anytime try scorer for your hooker. That's a good price.
Yes, I think the big thing, I mean, he's obviously shortened incredibly throughout the season as soon as the bookies caught on. And the only thing here is, as we said, the instances of them kicking to the corner are going to be less this time around. So obviously the bookies have been a little bit smarter and taken that into account. But yes, definitely he's got to be a runner. I mean, if there are going to be a couple of tries, then you'd probably think he's going to be at the back end of one. The only problem is, if the Jaguares do opt to say, listen, let's just sack this thing, and there could actually be a penalty try instead. I think the last two outings, they've been penalty tries from the Brumby rolling ball. So it's almost like the teams are trying to stop them come what may. So that's the only issue there. But no, I'm never going to put anyone off taking a hooker.
Well, let me tell you, Steve, you've got great value there, because I think the local bookmakers, a lot of our good for the game punters tend to punt this bet, and Couch has certainly been leading the way. I've seen prices ranging from sort of 12-10 to sort of 14-10 for Fainga to score try at any time. You're getting, in decimal places, you're getting the $4.50, which relates to sort of 7-2 in fractional odds. So I think that's a cracking price on him to score try.
Yeah, it is. That's what I thought. It's a good value for him, but it's also surprising the value you get, or the lack of value you're getting for other players, especially in the Jaguares. I was surprised to see Mojano, who they've got coming off the bench, so not even starting, is the lowest odd player to score a try, paying $3. And he's not even going to be starting on the field. So the fact he could only get 20 minutes or half an hour, the fact that he's still one of the last playing players on the pitch for the Jaguares. So that's, I thought, a really interesting one as well. But there's a lot of guys who are not paying much in the player options for try scoring. And it's the guys you probably expect, and especially for the Jaguares, like we talked about, the Crusaders, Maronis, Mojanos, of course, who's off the bench, Buffelli, those sort of guys not paying much. I mean, they're only 310, 350 sort of range. So when you got Fainga, who is definitely, if you're looking at the Brumbies, certainly their favourite to get over the line, there's got to be one you've got to jump on. Alongside him, Henry Spate, Tony Pulu. But I just don't know how much ball they're going to see. If they do pack up shop and they do say, no, we're playing everything tight, we're going to keep it tight, you backs, you've just got to tackle, defend. That's all you want to do. That's all you got to do. We're going to control this game with the forward. So, yeah, it's if they play that game, your Pulus and your Spates, they're not going to touch anything. So it's a bit of a risky one to go with those guys out the backs. But I think definitely the Jaguares will look to those guys to do it. And if they can, there's not too much in it for you as well for the risk.
Excellent.
And also Pete Samo isn't playing, and Samo is usually also I had him last week, and he scored quite a nice try there. So he's also quite a decent try scorer, which is now out of the mix. So again, it just makes it a little bit better actually for me for Lau.
Excellent, guys. Well, thanks very much. That was a game where we don't have a lot of betting interest, and we succeeded in talking about it for a good 20 minutes or so. So let's move on now. I think some excellent chat on that. But let's move on to the other game that's taking place in Christchurch Saturday morning South African time, 9:35. I imagine it relates to around about a 7 o'clock in the evening kickoff there in New Zealand. And Couch, I'm going to start with you. There were some early minus 10.5 Crusaders. I confidently predicted that this line would move closer to where I projected, which was 15.5. It has moved, but it hasn't moved at any great rate, although I still wouldn't be surprised to see this edge towards the 13.5 point mark. As you well know, I'm on the Crusaders. I put it on Sunday's video. I put it in the preview. I'm all over them. I just love their playoff record, and for me, this stands out as the bet of the weekend. But I know you're not necessarily in my camp here.
It was a extra read all about it. 11.5 went last, and an hour later I saw 10.5 available. So that was quite nice. Eh?
And where's that 10.5 now? Is it still available?
Yes, it's now 11.5. Where you said it wasn't going to be.
Not available.
Listen, now I was thinking, as I've said, for me in this time of the year, I've already made my money. I'm not going to go blow it now in the semi-finals where the bookies have seen 15 weeks of rugby just like I have. I don't think there's massive value at this time of the year, but as you well know, in these knockouts, there is in that minus handicap is actually quite a decent way to go, as we've seen this past weekend, especially of the Crusaders. One is that as soon as a team does get behind a little bit, it's almost race over. So I actually think it almost like the bet you had in the previous one isn't a runner for this one. I wouldn't say that the Hurricanes are going to lose close. It could be either the Hurricanes winning or it could be a complete blowout by 20 plus points. So it's that kind of crazy game for me where it could go either way. And I mean, it's similar to that Chiefs game in Suvo, is that then things just stuck for them and all of a sudden they came back. But we were all thinking, geez, we wish you were on a bigger minus for the Crusaders after half an hour. So things can just go that way, and hopefully. And I watched the breakdown earlier now as well. They said Ollie Williams was saying he thinks the Hurricanes should just pop in there and just throw the ball around and pretty much hope for the best. And I think he's got a point there. You can't outmuscle them, especially not the Hurricanes. You can't out tactical strategize them, especially not Plumtree. So I mean, you got to stick to what you're good at. And the only thing I think is often people look at the stats and they're going to throw it on there, how much possession the Hurricanes had and how much they do this and how much they do that. The fact of the matter is the Hurricanes don't stress about possession. They sit back, they try and make their tackles, and they wait for a quick counter or they wait for something special from Bowden or TJ Perenara. And quite often, or more often than not, that works for them. So it's I don't think they're a stats kind of team. I don't think it's too much to worry about their form this season. I think they're as capable as anybody else of beating the Crusaders. And say what you will, I just don't think this is the same Crusaders team as last year. They're a quality rugby team. I love them. They're the best in the competition, but they're not as clinical as last year, I don't think. And a few slip-ups have shown this. This weekend they pull away when the Highlanders had a yellow card, which I think had a big influence. And obviously Mo'unga is great for them, but hopefully Mo'unga slips up a little bit. Bowden Barrett as a blinder to show he's still the man. And 4-1, I'm taking that Hurricanes to win the game.
Well, I totally agree with you. I think the Hurricanes have got a much chance of beating the Crusaders as any other team in the competition. And as far as I'm concerned, that's pretty close to no chance. Now, look, I'm on the Crusaders. I very much differ with Couch in the sense that I tend to do and I'm not saying I'm going to hit every game, but I tend to actually make more money in the playoffs. And what I like about playoff rugby is that you're not chasing bonus points. You're not worried about quite often resting players for the next week. You're going out there to win the game. And for that reason, I also tend to find the bookmakers tend to think of playoffs as close games. And if you actually look at the stats of Super Rugby playoffs over the years, there's been quite a few games which have been won by Crusaders by 21 points or 25 points. And if you look at the Crusader stats, I mentioned it on the previous show, 6 of their last 7 playoff games, and I've only looked at the last 2 years because, anything beyond that is probably getting a bit irrelevant. But 6 of their last 7 games have been wins by sort of 13 points or more, including beating the Hurricanes in this fixture last year by 18 points. And that, let me bring Steve in at that point. Steve, you can see where I'm leaning. I'm quite firmly on the Crusaders to win this one fairly comfortably in the end, although I do expect the Hurricanes to be in with a shout at some stage. But similar to the Highlanders, I expect the Crusaders to get on top of them. And I'm looking for them. I've got the minus 10.5. I'm looking them to win by 11 or more. I don't know, the handicap at TAB New Zealand, probably 11.5 or 12.5 points.
Yeah, so it started off at 11.5, and it's risen up to 12.5. So I think there's a lot going on.
Stop for a second, Steve. I just wanted to Couch. Did you hear that? Couch, did you hear that? Okay.
Yeah.
Carry on, mate. Carry on.
Yeah, there's no 10.5 here for you to grab, I'm afraid to say. But it's Crusaders are pretty heavy favourites here. A lot of people will be putting the money on the Crusaders because the Canes odds just seem to be going up and up and up. Head to head, they started off at $4.05. That's the Hurricanes. and they've gone up to $4.40. So that's a quite considerable lift over the last few days. And when you look at form as well, especially on that point start that the Crusaders have been given, they've got that in the last 9 out of their last 10, I should say, New Zealand derbies that they've played at home. So they are generally pretty safe to put that on, that they're going to actually come through and deliver that on those odds. So it's not paying a huge amount. It's $1.90, but you kind of think that everyone is swaying towards that one going the way of the home side. But the one I think I really like about this game, and I find it with the Crusaders, especially when they get a tough game like this. So you see them in games that they know they have to fight for and they have to wear their opponents down. They quite often throw away the first half because they are just wearing down. They're grinding down, a bit like the All Blacks do play when they play a big test match. They'll get to halftime, they'll be within 3, 4, 5 points sort of thing, within a scoring play. And that's when the second half comes out. The opposition is starting to wear down. They're starting to get tired, and that's when they take over. I think that's a very Crusaders and All Black-like thing to do. And when they come up against a tough opposition, like you'd expect the Hurricanes are going to be, and when they've got those advantages over them as well, I really like the fact of a Hurricanes halftime, Crusaders full-time, and that's paying a good $6.50, which has stayed steady. So no one's really jumped on that too much. So that's what I really like. If they're going to play that sort of style of game, that's where they're going to get in. And I think they've got good advantages too, the Crusaders, over the Hurricanes, because they've got that inexperienced midfield, because they're playing the Umanga Jensen and Mape combination again. That's going up against Crotty and Goodhue. They're going to own that. And of course, you've got that weakness of Rayasi out in the wing. So that kind of does worry me. Great on attack, but defensively, I think they're going to find him out a little bit. The Crusaders are far too clever to let a mismatch like those two to go unnoticed. And when you've got the speedsters, the Bridges, the Sevu Reeses, those guys, they are going to be thundering down that wing and through that outside centre channel. So I think that we could see a bit of a wear down period. Hurricanes will get their hopes up, and the Crusaders will dash them going late onto the game. So if you're into that sort of thing, it could get you a little bit of a tidy sum.
Excellent. Well, that's certainly a nice price. And I mean, those half-time, full-time players, I often enjoy them in games where I perhaps don't have a very firm view on. But another bet that lends itself to what you're saying, Steve, and not many of the bookmakers offer it, but one of the bookmakers that does is Sunbet here in South Africa. It's a second half handicap, which they priced up beforehand. And they've got Crusaders minus 5.5 points on the second half handicap. And that's also quite a nice one if you do expect, as you say, the first half to be a sort of a grinding down process, because then it's really only one converted try extra that they've got to score in the second half. That's a good option perhaps for the bigger hitters who want to have a bigger punt.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a good one to go with. Sadly, they don't offer that here for us, but I just think that's how the game's going to go, and that's how the Crusaders normally go with their stronger opposition. I think definitely the Hurricanes, like you guys have said, this is the team that is most likely going to trouble them as well. So I'm surprised kind of that handicap is so high, because you've always got that feeling that the Hurricanes, if they get their night like the Chiefs, if things click, if the passes stick, if those guys get into those sort of spaces, they could really throw a spanner into the Crusaders' works. It's hard to see, and I wouldn't want to back it too much, but it's certainly a possibility. And I think if you are a big Wellington supporter and you like your Canes, definitely any sort of bets that go the way of the Hurricanes pipping it is certainly worth a look at as well. So yeah, you could come away with something there if the upset does occur. But for me, no.
You're going, yeah, you and I think are in the same camp on that one. Well, let me start with you then on the total points lines, and we'll move on to catch. The points lines here set at 48.5 points. Now, there were 52 points in the Highlanders game last week, the Highlanders-Crusaders game. In the end, I know one bookmaker offered 52.5, so I know a few guys who were on unders there and just got up. But, New Zealand derbies, you can almost throw a blanket over the total points, 40 to 50 points. At some point in the game, it's going to explode and we're going to get points, whether that's in the first half or the second half. But it's also unlikely to blow out to be a 65-pointer, particularly in a playoff game. And once again, I'm battling for a bit of value. Conditions, I believe, are going to be good in Christchurch. And I certainly would be nervous to go under 48.5, the way these teams play.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, conditions will probably be cold. It should be dry, but that dew always comes in, and then the kickoff time's around 7:30. So that's when you start getting it coming down as well. So they should be all right. I expect they should be getting used to that now as well. But 48.5, I'd probably go over on that too, because like you say, you did right. There's going to be points. It's going to come in some capacity, and I'd say it's going to come in a big way when the two teams throw it all out there. The Hurricanes are probably going to go into this with a bit of a never say die attitude. So they're going to be going all guns blazing, chancing those 50-50 opportunities as well. So they're going to score tries. Both these teams score tries. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Hurricanes do get that little bit of excitement in them where they're probably going to throw away a couple of penalties to look for tries if they get the opportunity, depending on the status of the game and how it's flowing at the time. But when they're on a roll, you can't throw that away. And they've got guys who can definitely do the unthinkable sort of thing. So if they've got opportunities and they've been pushing away for a while, I think they could throw away a few points at 3 and look for the big ones instead. So there's going to be a lot of points. They're going to try and make it as hard as possible for the Crusaders. And to do that, you've got to put points on the board. So they'll be throwing everything they got at it, throwing everything. Yeah, no, there'll be no hold bars on this one. It's going to be points all over the place. So, yeah, I'll definitely be 48.5. It's worth the go as well.
Excellent. Well, I must say, a few things I enjoy more than a really competitive New Zealand derby where the teams are throwing everything at each other. I mean, that first half, even last week, Highlanders against Crusaders, I thought the Highlanders are absolutely superb. Thoroughly enjoyed that one. Before I bring Couch in on the total points, just to mention, talking of, you mentioned being on a roll. We were on a great roll with our weekly newsletter bets. Unfortunately, last week I got involved in the Ireland under-20s against the Baby Blacks and came horribly unstuck. We'll be looking to right the ship tomorrow. I have put a link to the newsletter. It's a free weekly emailer that goes out. Just hopefully add a bit of value to your weekend. We normally share an accumulator and a best bet, usually from the show. You can click on that and subscribe. It takes you just a couple of seconds. Right, Couch, let's move on to you. 48.5 points. You see any value here or on any of the team's points lines?
Brent, again, I'd prefer to go points, and in the case, I'm pretty sure someone like Heinrich might have had a look at unders on Hurricanes points. I know you can hear what Steve's going to go for, but again, if they do fall behind and they end up not taking their kicks and it's almost desperately trying to go for tries and they just can't break through, then they're not going to be accumulating those 3 points and they could actually get into a bit of a rut and not get going. So if you are opposing the Hurricanes, then going unders on their points at around 20. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but if you get around there, then you can go unders. But I must agree with Steve a little bit there. I think even the Hurricanes could slip in a few, as they're just going to try those 50-50 offloads, and you have to think that probably work sometime. And again, Crusaders could pull away big time and get into the high 30s, early 40s even. So then your total points is gone there as well. So I'd actually think that total points in running, I like what you said, is you often see this either starting very slow and having like 30 minutes before something happens, or we see loads of points by halftime and then all of a sudden they just get into this rut for 30 minutes after it, and then you only see action in the last 10 minutes again. So I'd have a good look at the points line in running and see how the game's developing and try and preempt those patches of either action or non-action. So that's, I think, the way to go on the points line for me. So I won't be getting involved either way. And then just on the second half, if I'm going to go for the Crusaders, which I might still have a little nibble, I'll do it on the second half handicap. I just think that, again, if they do just get it slightly ahead at halftime, they could just blow out in the second half. Because as we said, if you go more than 7 behind, the Hurricanes could get desperate and then things could get sloppy. And there's just no there's no glory in losing by 2 or 3 points in this one. If it's going to be 5 points, it's going to end up being 15. So I like the second half handicap more than the outright handicap.
Right, second half handicap at -5.5. Anything else then for you, Couch, before we wrap up?
I've just got Wetu Douglas as the first try scorer. Again, I've taken out a rolling maul per se as the first try scorer because I just don't see people kicking for the corner that often. But to me, it gives you like almost a little double play. He's involved in the loose, and he's going to be, if you've got a ruck there close to the line, he often likes to get over. He's a bit of a try scorer. Obviously, if you want to be a little bit at a nice price, you can probably get Scott Barrett as a decent price, and he's also got a liking for the touchline for a tight forward. He scores plenty. Obviously, Cody Taylor is another runner, and yeah, okay, pick your back. They can all score there, but to me, Wetu Douglas, I just got to check the price I got is 23 to 1. Bet Olam special is Wetu Douglas first price scorer.
Right, first try scorer at 23-1. I know Enor coming off the bench there. I might have a look at him for a last try scorer. Steve, anything to wrap up from your side?
Yeah, I'll throw one little extra in there to mention as well, because if you're going for the handicap, which is sitting at 12.5 at the moment, you could also put it on the margin for the Crusaders to get that job done. So at 11-15, Crusaders pick up a win, which is pretty much right in the same sort of thing. They are paying $6.50, which is quite a lot, especially when if you take them minus 12.5, they're only sitting at $1.90. So if you pick your right bets and the way to word them, you could come out saying a bit better as well. So that's quite a considerable margin to come away with for the Crusaders. So, yeah, going for the margin on that, that's paying a good amount.
I know that a lot of our local books, and I haven't checked the price on this, but they give you a bigger points margin. So they'll give you 11 to 20 points. And I know last week, and the handicap's much the same. Last week it was 28-10, the Crusaders to win by 11-20, which in the end just missed because they won by 24. But if you look at their playoff wins, it's amazing how many of the wins have been between 11 and 20 points and around about that 15-point mark. So I'd have to agree with you there. I think there's some good value on that one. But, gents, thanks very much. Thanks to all the guys who did watch on the live show, despite the fact that there are no South African teams in action this week. We, of course, are busy preparing in camp. And if you want our opinion on that, well, we did have a show on Monday night. I'll stick up a link to that towards the top of the show here. But, Steve, thanks very much for joining us so early, and enjoy the rugby.
Yeah, no worries at all. No, it's good to be up. I might get something achieved today for once, actually. But really prepared for tomorrow. It's good to have them all on the same day, so it's not so bad. Time zones here, 11 a.m. for the Jaguares game, and then 7:30. So I mean, you could do something in between, but it's at least a nice way to start the day and end the day as well, and have a finalist to look forward to next week.
Excellent, Couch. Thanks very much. It looks like it's chilly down your part of the way, and enjoy your weekend. Lots of other sport like Cricket World Cup to bet on as well.
Cheers, Brent. Yeah, the only thing is I was thinking that I don't know what we're going to do with the rest of our Saturday, because by 11 o'clock it's or 12 o'clock it's all done and dusted. So goodness knows I might actually see my mates for a change.
Yeah, maybe if you've got any of them left, and if you've been ignoring them the whole of Super Rugby. But anyways, gents, thanks very much. Thanks also to the guys in the live chat. It's going to be a cracking weekend. Subscribe to our newsletter down below if you haven't done so yet. And we look forward to seeing you next week at the Handicap Rugby Chat That Matters, where we'll be talking about the final. I'm predicting it's going to be in Christchurch. Thanks very much, everyone.